Hi, this is Mr. Murphy from Teaneck High School's Fine and Performing Arts Department. I'm the theater teacher here at Teaneck High School. I'm here to give you tips, hopefully, on getting an A on the memorization phase of this exercise in Mrs. Wright's class. First, you say to yourself, how do you memorize things? If you think of a favorite song that you have, an artist, or a hip hop lyric, or even telephone numbers, you say to yourself, how do you memorize these things? 9 times out of 10 is through rotation. It's something that you say over and over again. Every time that song comes on, you're singing it. Every time that music video comes on, you're doing the dance movements with it. That's why it becomes second memory. I would say the same thing with lines in a poem or a skit or any type of piece of literature. You have to read it over and over again. Also, what's key too that you have to realize with memorization, although it's a cerebral activity, it's also a verbal one. You just can't keep it here. You cannot read something and then just in your head. You have to verbally go over the lines out loud. I often tell my theater students that when they're walking down the hallway, say your lines out loud. See if people are actually listening to you. Get used to the flow of words in your mouth, the rhythm of those words. And most words, especially literature, if it doesn't necessarily rhyme, it has a rhythm to it. Play around with the rhythm to it of those words. I would say words you should be able to get right underneath, go around, play around with them. Sometimes even rearrange them. Play around with the power words. Take that control of the words itself, because a lot of times as actors or as students, we look at something, you say, oh my God, how can I memorize all this? I have students now that saying, Mr. Murphy, I can't memorize this entire monologue. I can't memorize this whole passage of Shakespeare. And sometimes the little thing, there's an African proverb that says, how does one eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Take one small chunk of it. Before you know, you take a small chunk of something, you realize you have devoured the whole thing in front of you. That's always the best thing. And just say to yourself over and over, how do these things stay in mind? One of my favorite Shakespeare plays is Othello. And there's a scene in Othello that I just absolutely love. For those who are not familiar with the show, it's about a Moor. He's a Spanish Moor of African descent. He's an older man, maybe about 40 some odd years old. He married a young Venetian, a young Italian girl, Desdemona. She's considerably younger than she is. She's about maybe 18, maybe 17 years old. And he comes back. He thought it would be a surprise. Her father finds out about it and is outraged. Othello's a contemporary of her father. They fought wars together. Her father's a general. He's a general. It's like, and this, what he says is, this old black ram has married my daughter. Even one of Othello's trusted aides, who turns out to be the man who's trying to do his undoing, Iago, tells Brabantio, he leans into the father who didn't know that his daughter married Othello. He leans into Brabantio and he says, now, even now, the old black ram is tupping the young white ewe. And he says this insidious things about Othello and his relationship with his daughter that's just purely physical. And it's a great scene when Desdemona's father, Brabantio, comes to confront Othello about his daughter. And Othello looks at her father, and he says, you know, that I told her my woes and pains of thy heart, and she baited me, and she thanked me with 1,000 tears. That I did woo her through this course of woe and sorrow of my woeful tales of my adventures in the world. I thought it was one of the most beautiful passages in the world, of this man talking about his love for this man's daughter. That it was based on his friendship that he was able to tell her about his adventures out in the world. And she listened to him. And she cried of the things that he talked about. And she laughed at some of the things that he talked about. Sometimes memorization, you have to find a connection to it. A lot of times, when we're trying to memorize things, people automatically say is, I don't get this. This doesn't make any sense. Everything's universal. Find some way to connect to it. All dots connect too. And sometimes the best way to see how we connect is by looking back, not necessarily going forward. So sometimes when you're reading something, say, I don't get it. Read it again. Read between the lines. What I often tell students when they say, well, I don't get it, I don't know what this is about. And I said, well, if you did know, then what is it about? Rethink it. Re-go over it. You have to sometimes rearrange our thought process. But again, keep in mind that proverb, nothing is as big as it seems. Every little bout counts. This is Mr. Murphy. And good luck, and get that A in that class.